Module 2. Morality and Human Life. Reward and Punishment. Rewarding individuals involves establishing criteria to recognize and incentivize desirable behaviors and achievements. These criteria may include factors such as effort, merit, talent, productivity, contribution to society, or adherence to certain values. Effort-based criteria acknowledge the hard work and dedication individuals put into achieving their goals, while merit-based criteria reward accomplishments and skills. Talent-based criteria recognize innate abilities and exceptional aptitude in specific areas. Productivity-based criteria assess the individual's output and contribution to organizational or societal objectives. Finally, values-based criteria focus on ethical behavior and the demonstration of virtues such as honesty, integrity, and compassion. Punishment serves as a mechanism to deter undesirable behavior, maintain social order, and seek justice. Various perspectives shed light on the purpose and nature of punishment. Retributive theories argue that punishment should be proportionate to the offense committed, focusing on the idea of retribution, or giving offenders their just deserts. Utilitarian theories view punishment to achieve social utility, aiming to maximize overall happiness or reduce harm. Rehabilitative theories emphasize the transformation and reintegration of offenders into society through education and rehabilitation programs. Restorative justice approaches focus on repairing the harm caused by the offense and promoting dialogue between the victim, offender, and community. Two American philosophers, Robert Nozick and John Rawls, have put forth disparate ideas about the centers on the distribution of rewards and resources in society. Nozick argues for a minimal state and the principle of entitlement, emphasizing individual rights and the protection of private property. He contends that individuals should be able to keep and distribute their rewards as they see fit. In contrast, Rawls advocates for a more egalitarian approach, promoting the principle of justice as fairness. Rawls argues that inequalities in society should benefit the least advantaged and that wealth redistribution can help address social injustices. Human rights. The rise of human rights marks a significant milestone in the evolution of civilization. Human rights principles recognize the inherent dignity and worth of every individual, establishing a foundation for fairness, justice, and equality. By emphasizing the protection of fundamental freedoms and the prevention of discrimination and oppression, human rights contribute to the advancement of civilization. They provide a framework for promoting social progress, fostering inclusivity, and challenging oppressive systems and practices. The moral system. Setting up a moral system begins with establishing basic assumptions that serve as the foundation of ethical reasoning. These assumptions may include beliefs such as the inherent value and dignity of human life, the existence of objective moral truths, the importance of human relationships and social cohesion, and the capacity for individuals to make moral choices. These assumptions shape the underlying worldview and provide a starting point for ethical deliberation. Basic principles serve as guiding values in a moral system, providing a framework for assessing actions and making moral judgments. Several key principles are commonly emphasized. Value of life. This principle recognizes the intrinsic worth and dignity of all human beings, promoting respect for life and the preservation of well-being. Goodness. The principle of goodness encourages actions that promote the well-being and flourishing of oneself and others. It encompasses virtues such as kindness, compassion, and empathy. Justice. Justice entails fairness and the equitable treatment of individuals. It involves the distribution of resources, opportunities, and consequences in a manner that upholds equality and ensures that people receive their dues. Although a justice system purely based on equality would not always work. For example, if there is widespread hunger and a very limited amount of bread, equal distribution of the loaves might not always be possible. One approach to this could be to use a lottery to determine who receives bread so that everyone has an equal opportunity to have some. Honesty. Honesty is the principle of truthfulness, requiring people to be sincere, transparent, and accountable in their actions and communications. Individual freedom. The principle of individual freedom recognizes the autonomy and agency of individuals, advocating for their right to make choices and pursue their own interests, if they do not infringe upon the rights and well-being of others. A moral system operates by applying these principles to real-life situations and ethical dilemmas. For example, when faced with a decision that involves potential harm to others, the principle of value of life guides individuals to prioritize actions that minimize harm and prioritize the well-being of individuals involved. The principle of justice ensures fair treatment and equitable distribution of resources in social, political, and economic systems. Honesty guides individuals to prioritize truthfulness and integrity in their interactions. The principle of individual freedom allows individuals to exercise their choices and pursue their goals if they do not infringe upon the rights and well-being of others. By applying these principles in a consistent and reasoned manner, individuals and societies can establish moral systems that promote ethical behavior, social harmony, and the well-being of all members. Human life. The value of human life is a foundational principle in ethics, emphasizing the intrinsic worth and dignity of every individual. However, there are instances where the taking of human life may be deemed morally justified. However, preserving human life is not always an absolute moral value. For example, the question of the right to commit suicide, although tragic, raises questions about personal autonomy and mental health. In certain cases, those facing unbearable suffering or incurable illnesses may argue for the right to end their own lives. Ethical frameworks that prioritize autonomy and individual choice may contend that, under specific circumstances, the act of suicide can be morally justified to alleviate immense physical or psychological pain. Moreover, taking a human life can be morally justified in cases of defending the innocent from imminent harm. Self-defense or defense of others is a recognized principle in moral philosophy, permitting the use of lethal force to prevent grave harm or loss of life. This principle acknowledges that protecting innocent lives may necessitate the unfortunate consequence of taking another person's life. War is another example of where the absolute value of human life becomes murky. The moral justification for taking human life in war rests on the principles of necessity and proportionality. Just war theory, for instance, argues that wars fought in self-defense or to prevent grave injustices can be morally justified. However, the decision to engage in armed conflict and the targeting of enemy combatants must be guided by principles that minimize civilian casualties and adhere to the principles of proportionality and discrimination. Likewise, capital punishment, the act of legally executing individuals convicted of severe crimes, raises ethical debates. Proponents argue that it serves as retribution, deterring potential criminals and upholding justice. However, opponents assert that the risk of wrongful convictions and the violation of the value of human life make capital punishment morally problematic. Alternatives such as life imprisonment without parole aim to protect society while avoiding irreversible actions that extinguish human life. Terrorism. While individuals engaged in acts of terrorism may justify their actions based on their beliefs or grievances, terrorism is generally considered morally unjustifiable. Terrorism intentionally targets innocent civilians, causing immense harm and suffering. The indiscriminate nature of terrorism violates fundamental ethical principles, such as the value of human life and the principle of proportionality. The deliberate targeting of non-combatants undermines the ethical framework that upholds the protection of innocent lives. Passively allowing someone to die. Passively allowing someone to die involves withholding or withdrawing life-sustaining treatment when further medical intervention is deemed futile or burdensome. Ethically, this approach respects the principle of autonomy and promotes the individual's right to refuse medical treatment. Legal frameworks, such as advance directives and the Patient Self-Determination Act of 1990 in the United States, provide individuals with the ability to express their healthcare wishes in advance and ensure their decisions are honored. An important point to remember is that when dealing with the family of patients, it is important to use a team approach and show concern for not only the patient, but their family as well to make them and the patient feel more comfortable. Mercy death and mercy killing. Mercy death and mercy killing refer to intentionally causing or hastening death to alleviate suffering. The ethical considerations surrounding these actions are highly contentious. Advocates argue for the compassionate relief of unbearable pain and the preservation of an individual's dignity. Opponents assert that intentionally causing death violates the sanctity of life and undermines the value placed on human existence. The legal standing regarding mercy death and mercy killing varies across jurisdictions. In some places, these acts are illegal, while others have enacted legislation allowing for certain circumstances, such as assisted dying for terminally ill patients. The high-profile cases of Karen and Quinlan and of Terry Schiavo demonstrate the complexity of legal and ethical debates in end-of-life decisions. These cases involve disputes over the withdrawal of life-sustaining treatment and the determination of a person's wishes in the absence of explicit directives. The Patient Self-Determination Act of 1990 in the United States aims to promote patient autonomy by requiring healthcare providers to inform patients about their rights to make decisions regarding their medical treatment. This act emphasizes the importance of advance care planning, including the creation of living wills and the appointment of healthcare proxies. Additionally, alternative approaches such as hospice care provide terminally ill patients with palliative support, pain management, and emotional care, focusing on enhancing quality of life in the final stages. Abortion. Supporters of abortion rights argue for a woman's autonomy and right to make decisions regarding her own body. They emphasize women's reproductive rights, personal freedom, and the avoidance of unwanted pregnancies, suggesting that restrictions on abortion could lead to unsafe and illegal procedures. Conversely, opponents of abortion assert the moral status of the fetus, considering it as a separate human life deserving protection. They argue that the right to life of the unborn outweighs a woman's right to choose, citing moral, religious, and philosophical grounds. Determining when human life begins is a crucial aspect of the abortion debate. Different perspectives exist on this matter. Some argue that human life begins at conception, viewing the fertilized egg as possessing the same moral worth as a fully developed individual. Others contend that personhood and moral status emerge gradually, tied to the development of cognitive abilities, sentience, or viability outside the womb. The lack of consensus on this issue contributes to the ethical complexity surrounding abortion. Moderate positions on abortion seek to strike a balance between the rights of the woman and the potential rights of the fetus. They often advocate for restrictions on late-term abortions while allowing for early-term access to abortion services. Such positions acknowledge the moral complexity of the issue and aim to find common ground that respects both the autonomy of the woman and the value of potential life. Several landmark Supreme Court cases have shaped the legal framework concerning abortion. The case of Roe v. Wade, 1973, recognized a woman's constitutional right to privacy, including the right to choose abortion. In 1989, in Webster v. Reproductive Health Services, the Supreme Court allowed the states to add certain limitations on abortion rights. Subsequent cases, such as Planned Parenthood v. Casey, 1992, and Whole Woman's Health v. Hellerstedt, 2016, refined the legal standards surrounding abortion, including considerations of undue burden and the protection of women's health. Finally, in 2022, the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade and ruled that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. As of 2023, this remains the law of the land, and it is up to individual states as to whether to allow or prohibit abortion. In the year following Dobbs, about half the states moved forward with various levels of abortion bans, though many of these bans were still tied up in court or amount to only partial bans. The ethics of lying and cheating. Lying involves intentionally providing false information or withholding the truth. Proponents may argue that lying can protect others from harm, maintain social harmony, or achieve greater goods. However, critics contend that lying undermines trust, distorts reality, and violates moral principles such as honesty and integrity. Ethical theories such as deontology emphasize the importance of truth-telling, while consequentialism may consider the context and potential consequences of lying. Cheating involves gaining an unfair advantage through deception or dishonesty. Supporters of cheating may argue that it levels the playing field or promotes personal success. However, opponents assert that cheating undermines fairness, erodes trust, and compromises the integrity of individuals and institutions. Ethical theories like virtue ethics stress the cultivation of moral character, including honesty and fairness. Breaking promises entails failing to fulfill commitments made to others. Rationalizations may include changed circumstances, perceived impossibility, or prioritizing personal interests. Critics argue that breaking promises erodes trust, damages relationships, and undermines the value of integrity. Ethical theories such as contractually emphasize the importance of honoring agreements and upholding obligations. Stealing involves the unauthorized taking of someone else's property. Some might justify stealing based on necessity, such as where it's necessary to avoid starving, redistributive justice, or challenging unjust economic systems. Opponents contend that stealing violates property rights, disrupts social order, and undermines trust in the rule of law. Ethical theories like libertarianism prioritize property rights and respect for individual ownership, while consequentialism may consider the overall consequences of stealing. Ethical theories provide different frameworks for evaluating lying, cheating, breaking promises, and stealing. Deontological perspectives prioritize adherence to moral duties and principles, while consequentialism weighs the outcomes of actions. Virtue ethics emphasizes moral character and personal virtues. Each theory offers unique insights and considerations in evaluating these ethical dilemmas. People who have resources but don't act ethically regarding money often do so because they act based on what feels good for them at the time. By the same token, acting ethically secures long-term benefits such as positive self-image and good reputation in the community.